All right, so you need to adjust the guidelines for your customers so that when they're running numbers out in the field and trying to issue those letters, they're not exceeding the thresholds that you want to put in place for them. Inside of a loan, you go to loan programs. This is going to change the loan level guidelines. Now, you can control this on a company level, on a loan officer level, or on a loan by loan level. Again, if you change things at a company level or a loan officer level, they will not change for the loan programs that have been created on existing loans. It only changes on loans moving forward. It's a very important distinction. So in this case, I'm going to click loan programs. And again, this is like our guidelines. Essentially, what are we measuring the customer's TBD purchase scenario against to determine if they qualify? So in this dropdown, you can see there are several loan programs. The one that we're focusing on is the one that has a calculator. The calculator represents which programs this customer has access to. And you can see this check mark right here says make this program available to the borrower. If you want to make multiple programs available, that's fine. Use the drop down, select another program, select the first checkbox, and you'll see now we've got two calculators. Now with that being said, I'm going to go through here and show you the majority of the time what you're going to want to focus on. That is in two sections. There is what's called a letter template. So this is to select which pre-approval, pre-qual letter this client has access to. Now, when you build your pre-approval letters, you'll want a default one that's going to work for 9 out of 10 customers. You may also have kind of a more specific one that would include different kind of language, maybe a contingency, something along those lines. And so in very few customers, you'll want to go in here and you can change the letter template by selecting it right there. And again, this is now going to be the letter that displays for that client when they issue it. The restrictions is where most of the time where you're going to need to make adjustments. So if you see right here, I've got my qualifying restrictions, and this is my DTI set to 47, back-end ratio. I've got my down payment set to 5% minimum with no maximum. I would establish a maximum if there was either a guideline limitation for how much they can make as far as down payment, or if there was an asset limitation that I wanted the system to recognize. And then, of course, my loan programs would be minimum and maximum. Again, we're going to try to let the system handle DTI calculations and help them determine the qualifications of the customer based on that DTI. But your conventional conforming loan limits will apply, your FHA loan limits will apply. So typically, you just want this maximum to represent the county or loan program type maximum. Your MI factors are all listed here. You can do financed, you can do upfront, and that should essentially show you where you need to make changes. Now, when you need to make changes here, essentially you want to create a default template that works for most of your customers, okay? And that's going to be in your settings. But if, let's say, for example, you have a scenario where the customer falls outside of the acceptable thresholds for the program. Let me change this to, let's say, I'm changing my tax amount to a higher number. I'm getting so close. I'm trying to get this above 47. That should do the trick. So what I've done is I've driven my subject property information, my TBD, to a threshold that's beyond what the customer can afford. This is the status you're going to see. So assuming that this scenario actually works and that this customer can afford a 47.8% back-end ratio, then you won't need to change things here in the scenario. You need to change things in the loan program. So in this case, you can read, it says not qualified. Your DTI is too high. So go to my loan programs, again, my guidelines, and let's say hypothetically in this case, my client's actually able to go to 48. I'm changing my restriction to 48. I'm going to save the changes. When I go back to the loan, you'll notice that it says qualified. Okay, so I've now, the guidelines here are not being exceeded by my subject property information and my customer's financial status. Hopefully that helps you guys understand what loan programs is and how it affects your customers and your loan officer approved scenario.